Hey everybody, so what I wanted to do in this video is just break down in as simplistic a way as I can how we tend to approach working through the progression of rehab. And I'll get into the nuances of this, but I want you to understand my hierarchy that we pass through as we go through these things, and then also some of the specifics that we might use as it relates to the shoulder for being able to make these things happen. So think of our hierarchy essentially as a pyramid. At the foundation, like the foundation of any house, the strongest bedrock that you can have, range of motion, ROM, pain-free, full range of motion. Now, why is this so important? And it's not to say that we can't blend some things in before we have full pain-free range of motion, but if we don't have full unrestricted movement of the joint in question, it becomes very hard for us to load things, load weight, load speed, load endurance on top of a foundation that's not strong, that's crumbling. And just like any house, if we don't have a strong foundation, nothing that we layer on top of that is going to hold, at least for very long. And this is one of the core principles and issues that I see with more traditional rehab, is this step, although it might seem simple, is not taken seriously enough. Therefore, when things get layered on top of it, the whole house tends to fall apart, results don't last very long, and you create more dysfunction over time. So the importance is not being okay with 70% of full range of motion, 80%, even 90% of full range of motion, really prioritizing getting this done, even if this is not the fun or sexy step that you want it to be. Now, as we start to approach that stage, we can layer in strength. This is the ability to exert force into different areas. Think about things like a push-up, things like pulling things towards you, pushing things away from you, holding things. So there are places and times when we can start to blend these lines and incorporate strength when we don't have full range of motion. It's easy to hold something heavy because that doesn't require a ton of range of motion, so that's something safe to incorporate. But in terms of pressing something fully overhead, we want to make sure that we have the range of motion in a full capacity to do that. If you can't get your arm over your head, I'm not going to give you a weight to press over your head because you don't have the requisite movement capacity to do that. Once we start building that strength, then we can start incorporating the next phase, which is power or speed. If you think of strength as exerting force, so picking something heavy off the ground, power is adding a speed component, so picking up something off the ground with a speed component, or fast, throwing something away from you, pulling something quickly toward you. Now, the reason we want to have a nice foundation of strength before we move into a power phase is simply because we want to be able to contract the muscle fully and in a strong sense before we ask the muscle to contract quickly. When you skip this phase is when you start to get muscle pulls, tweaks, you put the joint in a tough position. So if you're staying with me here, the same principle applies, that we can actually blend this line before. I wouldn't have you, for instance, press something fast over your head or throw something over your head before you have full range of motion, full strength to be able to get there repetitively over time with a certain amount of force, and the ability to then do that with speed. So if you're following me, we look at all different ranges of motion. The first ranges of motion that might typically come back with a pain-free shoulder are reaching out into this position. So we might do something like a dumbbell press on a bench, and then a fast med ball press, either standing up, to progress you through this hierarchy. And that applies to every range of motion. Now, although, like I had said, this seems very simple, don't think of this just as stretching, because there are plenty of ways to get the shoulder up overhead that aren't mechanically efficient. So we're focusing very heavily on not just getting a task done and getting the arm overhead or getting it rotated into this position, we're focusing on how we're getting it to that position. And that's where the nuance of the situation comes in, because there's plenty of good exercises and good ways to do things, but if you're not focusing on how the body is doing that and how forces are being distributed, you're really not putting yourself in a great position for long-term success. Now, the tip of the pyramid is very vague. It's task specific. If I get a baseball pitcher coming in here, task specific means we need to return them to throwing. If you're just somebody that wants to get back to general exercise, then that means you should be unrestricted in any movement that you want to do. And if the most that you do is picking up your grandkids and putting them over your head, we need to mimic what that force is like as well. So that's a more vague sort of thing that will apply generally to whatever the population that we're working with is. But this is generally how we think through working through any issue, specifically pared down to the shoulder in this specific instance.